Hey guys, today I'm going to review with you the 8 ways I protect my home when the outside temperature reaches minus 30 degrees Celsius or minus 22 Fahrenheit. Everything in my home has already been conditioned for the winter and is in good working order. I've already prepared for the arrival of the season. Now in the heart of winter, it's minus 30 degrees Celsius today, which is extremely cold and is likely to go even lower. Once we hit this range, I have a new checklist of priorities, which I like to run through daily. So when it comes to home ownership, here's what to expect when living in such harsh conditions and what to watch out for. So for me, the most important factor is keeping track of my sources of heat and making sure that they all work well. Right here is my furnace. This is my primary source of heat for my house. I'm constantly listening to make sure that when it turns on for about 10 minutes and not too much longer or shorter. If it is longer, it'll kick into second stage, which just means that it's burning more fuel and pushing more air. It's normal, so if it can't reach the desired temperature after 10 minutes, it will kick into that second stage. I'm also making sure that when it does turn on, it's not on for too short of a time, because that could mean there's a problem with pressure switches, or there could be issues outside where it can't vent properly or it's not getting the proper amount of air. So I want to make sure that there's no issues and nothing disrupts that source of heat. I have a look inside every now and then to make sure that the flames are igniting properly and that the color of the flames looks correct. And also looking at the error codes, making sure that there's nothing problematic on the little display screen inside the furnace. And of course, if something does go wrong, always having the name and the phone number of my servicing company on hand, just in case things stop working or if there's a problem with the furnace that I can't resolve myself. I also like to ensure that my secondary sources of heat are working correctly. So my in-floor heating unit here, followed by the fireplace right here on the main floor. And upstairs in the bonus room, there's another fireplace right here. So if there is a power outage, my only source of heat will be the 2 fireplaces and no blower, of course, because the blower requires electricity. I don't have a wood stove or an oil stove or another source of heat that doesn't require electricity. This has happened before, and the 2 fireplaces were able to keep the inside air temperature at a very comfortable level. So down that worst path, if there is a power outage and you cannot heat your home, if this were to happen, the interior temperature obviously is going to start to drop to the freezing point. And once it hits that freezing point, you need to take some action to help minimize the pipes from freezing. Here's what I would do in that situation. I would start off by turning on multiple taps. Just a little bit. There's that one. And the kitchen. Just turn it on slowly to keep the water moving so that it doesn't freeze in the pipes. Now, if the temperature continues to drop inside and it's going to become a major issue with freezing pipes, locate the water main shutoff inside your home. So for me, it's right here. And give that a twist to the off position. Now with the water turned off, there's obviously still a lot of water in those pipes and you need to drain down those pipes. So I found the lowest faucet in my house, turn that on, and then that drains down to here. And I'll let that drain out. And then also I'm going to turn on the faucets upstairs so that there's no airlock and the water gets released. And then it will only take a few minutes for that to drain out. Next, you want to locate anything that has a reservoir and try to empty that. This is my reverse osmosis here. I can easily empty that by turning on the faucet upstairs because there's a bladder inside that will help empty that with no water pressure coming behind it. These here, my water softener and my chlorine remover, I won't be able to do anything with that. There's no way I can disconnect that myself and empty the water out. So I have to keep an eye on that for when the water gets turned back on. You would also have to consider shutting off and removing any of the sediment filters. So just shutting down each side and then removing that and emptying the water out. In addition to the sediment filter I have here, Again, just be a matter of shutting it off on each side and then removing the tanks and draining them so that if they freeze, they don't cause any damage. And lastly, you would have to drain the toilet simply by flushing it. So if the house is frozen for an extended period of time, once things warm back up and the system is recharged, keep a close eye out for broken pipes which may not have fully drained. If this happens, shut off the water main, drain the system again, and then it's time to call your plumber. Now, speaking of pipes, the next one on the list is the outdoor faucets. Now, for me, I have an outdoor faucet valve right here, which then goes up and then separates out into two, a valve on each side of the house. This is already shut off, as you can see right here, and the valves on the outside are open. But when it's really cold out like this, I do like to check on the valves, but on the inside to make sure that the pipe isn't freezing. So right there, as you can see my faucet where it goes outside. It's the valve is actually located well inside, about a foot inside. That's to prevent freezing. But if I put my thermal imager on it, it is about 6 degrees Celsius. So yeah, not too concerned, but good to keep an eye on it because the frost can, the cold can actually travel up the pipe a little bit when it's at those extreme temperatures. And if my ceiling were completed here and there was drywall, it would definitely be a concern because then the cold air would stay in that little cavity right there. So what I would have to do is put some sort of vent in to keep some warm air from the basement flowing up into that area to prevent freezing of the main line, which starts right there and then obviously continues out here. So since I have my thermal imager out, I like to do a quick walk around and check out the inside and make sure that there's no drafts or any areas in the wall that lack insulation. Obviously I won't fix it now, but when things warm up, I could put in some extra insulation. The current temperature in the middle of the screen here is given in the upper left-hand corner, and the colors represent everything that the camera sees relative to each other. So in other words, the red doesn't mean hot and blue doesn't mean cold. It just means the relationship between each other, that there is a temperature difference. One is warmer or cooler than the other. Let's go over here in this corner. Here's my barbecue is out here, so this is the natural gas line for that. Oh, it's really cold up here. See that? It just hit 0. Yeah, I wonder why that is. I'm gonna have to check that out. Okay, moving right along here. Obviously around the window it's gonna be cold, but we'll talk about windows here in a bit. This is around the utility room. Just check in here around the seal where it goes outside. Not bad at all. Check in there. This is obviously the cold air coming in, and that's the warm air going out from the furnace. There's even a bit of condensation on it there, but you see the temperature of that pipe, and then it obviously comes down into the furnace and goes in right there. Okay, so let's move upstairs. So let's just fast forward to this section here. You can see the studs and the insulation in between. The studs are going to be a little bit cooler, and the door, of course, is a bit colder because it has direct access to outside. Upstairs on this wall, same thing. You can see the studs and the insulation in between. Corners, of course, are a little bit cooler. One little spot right here where it's a bit cooler. Not sure why. I might have to put some more insulation in here in the future, but just interesting to note. So I made my way around the house, and one of the more interesting places is the coolness right here that you see. Just check out the temperature right here. I've noticed walking on it, it's been cold, but right in there, and in there it's extremely cold. Check that out, there's like 0 degrees. It's freezing in there. So the reason for that is that's where the overhang is, and it's not insulated very well apparently. So I'll have to look at that when things warm up. This right here is the overhang where the hutch is. house, and that's why the floor is so cold, because the cold air is getting up there. Again, I'll have to check that out in the spring. As I was making my way around the house with the thermal imager, you may have noticed some heavy ice buildup on some of the windows. Out here in the dry prairies, it's important that we keep the humidity in our homes up, and usually around 30 to 50% is good for the winter. Here's mine right here. Water just pours over a little honeycomb shape in here, and then air passes over it, and then that gets taken in and then distributed throughout the house. Usually keep it between 30 and 40%. The unfortunate side of all this humidity has results into some heavy frost. So let's look at some of the impacts that this heavy frost on the windows may have. Right from the start, this means a lot of ice build up, and eventually it's going to melt and turn into water. In this case right here, you can see it started to melt and the water ran across the windowsill, then down over the trim, and then right next to this electrical socket, which could be a bit of a safety concern if the water went down on top of it, but then it spilled down onto the counter below. So I'm going to soak that up and get it cleaned up. I don't want to leave water standing here because it could make its way down in through the joins of the windowsill. So let's get that cleaned up. And sometimes I just actually leave a paper towel or a face cloth here in the windows to soak this up as it melts. So I'm going to go around to a few other windows and get that water cleaned off, any water that has melted so far, so that we can take care of it before it becomes an issue. So what you don't want to do is try to scrape off that ice with a windshield scraper for your car, and definitely don't put any hot water or blowtorch or anything silly like that on it, because you could end up breaking your glass. So I was just filming this video and I started to hear some dripping right here. Looked up, okay, there's water here, and actually can get way up in that window up there that I can't reach. The sun is coming in on it and the water is starting to leak off right there. So I'm going to get an extension pole with the cloth on it and just reach up there and get that cleaned off. Perfect timing. So I don't leave my blind closed all the way, because I like a bit of airflow in here so that we don't get too much frost build up. Yes, I can feel a lot of cold air coming in from here, and it would be more energy efficient if it was shut all the way. But then if I do that, we're going to get a lot of frost build up inside. And something else to expect in this temperature is with all the ice build up that you'll get in every window, that means you can't open your windows. They were totally frozen shut. So that means you need to make sure that your doors are accessible and not frozen shut as well. I like to check them before I go to bed and in the morning to make sure that they're not. Obviously with a door you have a lot more leverage to try to get them open. And since we're looking at doors, let's have a look at the base of the doors. You can see the temperature there just hit 4. This side's going to hit lower because it's a lot more purple. Yeah, -2 I just saw. So let's put down a blanket in front of that door, and that will help prevent some of our heat loss. You could use an old rug or a towel or a blanket or anything in this situation, and every bit of insulation around a door like this will definitely help. So unfortunately, some of these ways to protect your home during these frigid temperatures requires going outside. So let's go see what we need to do. Ice buildup can interfere with the functionality of my services and utilities here, causing some damage, and can also cause carbon monoxide poison, which obviously isn't very pleasant. So I need to make sure that the venting on everything looks good. So first off, I'm going to start up here on my garage. You can see this is where the vent is for my in-garage heater, and that all looks fine. This is the air intake here. That obviously looks fine as well, so I'm not concerned with that. There's a lot of frost and stuff over my light from the the exhaust, but that's fine. And up here we have my fireplace inside the bonus room. There's an icicle on it and then some exhaust. That all looks fine. This is obviously the bigger concern here. So let's do a quick run through of what's what. The first one here is the dryer. That's okay. It does need a bit of clean out, but there's still airflow and the valve is shut inside, the flapper is shut. This is just for the AC, that's AC power. This interesting creature here, that's just a big stick of ice which is dripping off of the furnace. So you can knock some of that away. Look up inside, that's all wide open, which is fine. These have a tendency to grow, so it's a good idea to break these off. There you go. Because if they grow too big, they're going to start to choke off the exhaust. This is an air intake here. That all looks okay. This is the air exchanger. That all looks good. This is air intake for hot water. That's out, going out from the hot water. That looks fine. And this is an intake here, which is completely blocked off. It's just snow. So I have to pop that off and give it another shake. I gotta put some gloves on for that and give that another shake out. The water faucet here, obviously that's open. I can't even turn it now, it's so frozen. Okay, so this is all looking fine, but it's important still though to check on it regularly. You can see how the exhaust goes right up to the top of the house there. And while we're out here freezing, let's have a look and see. The temperature is OL, which is out of range. You can see where the exhaust is there for the furnace. Do a quick scan, you can see a few temperatures coming through there now. You can see the difference in color. But it's all pretty uniform there, so there's no loss of heat. See the garage doors. There's some heat loss there, obviously. Wow, a lot of heat loss on the top. Around the rocks, it looks pretty decent. Oh, around the windows, there's a little bit of heat loss, but I guess that's pretty expected. And let's take a look on the side of the house quickly. I guess that's the sun on this side. Wow, what a difference that makes. There's the windows up there that were leaking inside. Yeah. That's a huge temperature difference. Okay, that's it. All right, guys, there you have it. That's my 8 ways to protect my home during these frigid temperatures. I hope that you found this information helpful. If you have any additional ways that you like to use to protect your home, do add them in the comments below. Give the video a thumbs up if you found this helpful, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and stay warm at a comfortable temperature inside. There's another source of heat right there.